Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Emerald City in Seattle, Washington, the UFO Bigfoot paranormal hotspot of the Pacific Northwest. Directly coming to you from all of your listeners around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. And I am your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, occupying the captain's chair tonight for SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, and including all of our listeners on the digital side at Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always find our archive shows for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up, of course, on our SOR Newswire and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website as well. All right, folks. Well, tonight, my very special guest is Mr. Tom Whitmore. On the board of directors, National Board of Directors for the Mutual UFO Network. Basically, we are going to be talking about what is the state of affairs in ufology, research, sighting reports, and all of those things that are happening, given the fact that we are in unique times, maybe more unique times than we believe or even think about, given the fact that a lot of folks have some extra time on their hands nowadays that is probably going to be used very wisely when they are looking at the night sky as well. And also we have with us one of our very favorite friends and colleagues, Mr. Peter Davenport, as well, at the top of the hour here. From the National UFO Reporting Center with some late-breaking UFO sighting reports that we're going to be talking about as well. So I'm going to bring in both of my special guests at the same time tonight, and we're going to get a dialogue going. So I want you to sit back, relax, get that hot toddy or cold drink, whatever you're going to be wanting to enjoy tonight as we go through the next few hours here on Spaced Out Radio. So let's bring on Peter first. Peter Davenport, are you there?
I'm here, Michael. Good evening and greetings to our audience tonight.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's nice to have you from the eastern wilds of eastern Washington out there in the hinterlands where it's still probably a little cold, right?
The hinterlands and the hunker down lands.
And, of course, we've got Mr. Tom Whitmore way far east, and I apologize to Tom for having to force him to get out of bed in the middle of the night, literally, on the East Coast. Tom, how are you, buddy?
Hi, Michael. Hi, Peter, and thank you for having me on, Michael. I'm really, really glad to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we are literally pleased to have this kind of conference call going on here between some very involved ufologists for decades in this business. Tom being a field investigator par excellence and a researcher that is coming up with some really incredible archive information, of course. And Peter out there hunkered down in his underground missile site in eastern Washington. It's not a bad place to be, I would think, Peter.
Yeah, I wish it combated viruses more than it does. I'm actually not hunkered down in it, but I do own it, and I go out and visit it every once in a while and try to decide what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah. What an interesting thing to have in your hip pocket, when you want to impress somebody. I'd like to come out and see my abandoned missile site, fascinating.
One of the more colorful entries on my curriculum vitae is I own a missile site.
Yes. Well, Since we don't have you for all of the evening, Peter, I thought maybe we should lead off with yourself in bringing to some of our listeners out there, literally around the world now, that everyone, and this, it's kind of funny to think about this, both of you, Tom and Peter, is that we kind of, I have a feeling every once in a while that I'm just doing this locally, and I see it locally with hardly anybody on the streets and that kind of thing. And of course, the grocery stores, low on produce and all that kind of stuff. But we have to realize this is happening literally around the world, where people are now concentrating on themselves and basically having to entertain themselves with whatever media and social media they have. So I think we're going to give a good social media kind of education tonight for some folks who might not normally be able to listen to folks like yourselves and Peter Davenport's up-to-date UFO sighting reports. So, Peter, why don't you just go ahead and take the lead here for Tom and myself, and both of us, either one of us, Tom, you and I, will jump in whenever we think would be a good time to ask Peter questions or clarify anything.
All right.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's a rare pleasure to be working with the two of you gentlemen. Thank you for reminding me, Tom, that we had met at the MUFON Symposium in Denver in 2004, July of 2000. What I do for the benefit of our audience, many of whom are in Canada, they probably know the operation that I run. I run the National UFO Reporting Center, which was founded in Seattle in 1974 by my predecessor in this job as director, Mr. Robert J. Gribble. And God only knows how I've been able to do it, but for the last 25 years, that has been my principal job, is to provide, like MUFON, to provide a facility where people, if they believe they may have seen a UFO, have a place to, or places to report it. That's what I do, and I should share with my audience, I feel, the reason I've been doing this, aside from just providing a service to the residents of our planet. I once saw a UFO. In fact, I've had several sightings over the last roughly 50, 55 or 60 years. And I would like to share with our audience my first sighting so they understand why I'm a UFO investigator. I get calls all the time, principally from mothers who tell me that their son or daughter has expressed an interest in becoming a UFO investigator, and they want to know what their youngsters should do to become a UFO investigator or an author, or there are many roles in the field of ufology. And my traditional response is, don't let them do it, whatever you do.
Don't let them grow up to be cowboys, right?
It's almost like a chemical addiction, I feel. But I believe it was 1954, summer, July, maybe August, I was seated in my family car. I was a lad of 6.5 years of age. My brother, older than I am by about 4 years, was in the back seat of our 1953 Studebaker. My mother was behind the wheel of the Studebaker. We were at a drive-in theater on the edge of the St. Louis airport, where my father worked for many years. And suddenly a disturbance started brewing in the theater, and we didn't know what was going on for several seconds. We didn't know if it was a fight or a fire or somebody was injured. But people were walking from our left to right in front of our car and blocking the screen from our view, which I found to be sort of annoying, I recall. And suddenly, people were pointing up to the sky to my right, and I looked out the right-hand side of that window of that car, and there was an object, almost fire engine red. It looked like the CBS symbol, eye-shaped, and it was about the size of a full moon in the night sky. And as I was watching it, trying to figure out what it was, it suddenly accelerated and went from my far right to gone over the car to the left side, gone over the airport in about 2 seconds. It accelerated from almost a dead stop to gone in probably 2, not more than 3 seconds, I would say. And that, my friends, is why I'm a UFO investigator to this day. That's the type of report, Michael, that I, as you know, and have known for just about the whole time I've been doing this job. That's the type of report that I receive on a regular basis. MUFON receives the same type of report. Sometimes we get our two organizations receive the same report from the same witnesses. But I thought I would like to share that with our audience tonight so they understand why I do what I do on a traditional basis. But I have a few reports that I would like to share with our audience tonight to illustrate the type of material that I receive on a steady basis. First report comes from the 5th of March. It was a Thursday night. A gentleman from Princeton, Maine, the great state of Maine, writes that at about 16:45 hours or 4:45 p.m. East Coast time, he was driving from work, driving into the city of Princeton, going north, and his attention was immediately riveted on an object that was hovering motionless in the northern sky, quite reflective. It had his attention immediately, and as he watched it for just a few seconds, he saw it for less than a minute, he believes. It was embedded in a cloud of haze, like just being in cloud, except it was being illuminated brightly by the setting sun. As he was watching it, he goes on to describe, it suddenly tipped its nose down and it changed its shape, going from spherical to a chevron shape. And it hovered in the sky for just a few more seconds before it suddenly just disappeared. Just disappeared before his eyes. It didn't fade out, it didn't streak off, it just disappeared. But that's the type of report that I receive on a regular basis with regard to being fairly dramatic. And
wow, that sounds to me to be something that was this 4:45 p.m. Would it have been nighttime at that point, dark?
No, I think it was still daytime.
Yeah.
Because he points out that the object he was looking at was being illuminated brightly by the sun.
Oh, I see.
Highly reflective. My first inclination was to ask whether it might have been one of these high-altitude balloons that are being launched by the U.S. government. What their purpose is, I have not been able to come up with yet, but the fact that it suddenly tipped its nose down and turned into a chevron shape all but rules out a high-altitude helium-filled balloon, I feel. But it's very good in several respects. The gentleman he writes very well, which is a big plus for me, and he describes his sighting in very great detail, fine detail, actually. So
yeah.
It's a very good report.
Well, and then how many times do you hear that, Tom, that something just disappears before their very eyes? It doesn't leave. It just disappears. I think that's fascinating.
Well, and I think it's actually moving. I've seen videos at conferences and MUFON symposiums. I'll never forget. I saw a couple of films. I don't remember which year it was, but they had the object in the frame, and it appeared to disappear. But when they slowed it down, really, really slow motion, you could see the object move off, but at a very, very high rate of speed.
Oh my! Yeah, that's the possibility, of course, Peter.
Yep. Tom's statement is reminiscent. It reminds me of the St. Clair County sighting on the morning of January 5th, 2000, when the police officers from at least 4 and maybe as many as 6 or 8 police stations were chasing a gigantic triangle all at the same time, and one of them was very close to it when it suddenly accelerated, and it jumped something like 25 miles in a matter of just a few seconds. We know that because the officer who first saw it before it moved was listening to the other officers over the 911 network, and he could estimate the amount of time it took for the object to go from his location to another town, the distance to which he knew. So I agree, these objects are capable of traveling at unimaginably great speed by terrestrial standards.
Yeah, fascinating sighting report. Thank you for that, Peter. Well, got anything else?
Oh, I've got a whole bunch here.
All right.
I think I'd like to share a couple more. They're potentially related. One comes from Oshawa, Ontario. This is a little more recent event than the last one I described. This is from the 17th of March, which was last Wednesday, I think. A gentleman writes that he was standing on a balcony in his living area with 3 friends. They were out there to smoke, and they saw a white light approaching their location at extremely high speed, high velocity. And they thought that was interesting because they live close to an airport, and they're quite familiar with approaching airliners, approaching and departing airliners. And this object they knew was not the International Space Station. It was moving too fast. Its angular velocity across the sky was way higher than that of the ISS. And as all 4 of them were watching it, and they agreed on this point, it suddenly did a radical, abrupt, sharp turn, maybe as much as 90 degrees from its original flight path across the sky. And it did another quick turn, went back the way it came at very high speed, and during this maneuvering it appeared incredibly to accelerate. So clearly not a terrestrial aircraft, but God only knows what it was. And that incident, again on the 17th, leads me to another report that comes from a gentleman in Spokane who 15 minutes after the sighting in Oshawa, Ontario, reports that he, like the gentleman in Oshawa, Ontario, was witness to a very bright light approaching from the east, his location, his residence in Spokane, Washington. And the object streaked in from the east. It stopped suddenly above a nearby building. It suddenly dropped, and he says dropped 15 feet, although that's a figure you should probably take with a grain of salt, since he doesn't know how how far away from him it was, it suddenly jumped back up to the point where it had jumped down, had descended so suddenly, and suddenly streaked off, going back the direction it had come from. So,
oh my!
Those are two reports that are,
and those seem very similar reports. You know, the bright light kind of thing coming from the east. It sounds like
they tend to corroborate one another. I feel.
Yeah, because obviously, Oshawa, Ontario, is east of Spokane, so potentially could have been the same object coming from the same direction, maybe.
One of the frustrating things is we'll never know the answer to that question, Michael.
Yeah.
But it is intriguing to consider the possibility that we're talking about the same objects or similar objects. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that is the type of report that I get on a routine basis. And if people would like to see many more reports, I would invite them to visit our website at UFOcenter.com. And for the benefit of our guests up in Canada, I should point out that we still spell center a bit strangely down here in the colony. UFOCNTER, not RE, of course. But,
yeah. And, you know, Tom, I just get to thinking here, we're probably going to lose Peter here at the after the break. So is there any question you want to follow up with Peter for the next minute or so before we go to a break?
Well, Peter, I did, in looking at your website, I noticed that you've had a lot of reports based on the Starlink microsatellites, and that seems to be an issue for you. And I'm sure it is, with MUFON too.
Last night was particularly bad. Thank you for mentioning that, Tom. Last night I took probably 3 or 4 dozen reports from people who were looking at the objects as they spoke on the phone. And you're right, they're the Starlink satellites. I think there have been 5 groups of them launched since May of last year. And it's a lot. It represents a lot of work because each one of those calls has to be processed, and you have to be courteous and explain to the caller what's going on.
Oh my, that's just all you need, Peter. With all those prank calls from those teenage kids, and then you've got all these satellite reports too. Well, listen, Peter Davenport, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to take a short break at the bottom of the hour here, but. Listen, I want to let you know that on the chat room here, Peter, your old buddy Cameron Hall, my young son, says hi to you. He's on the show listening and wanted to say hi to his old friend, Peter.
Greetings back to Cameron. I haven't seen him for a number of years, but it's nice to hear news of him.
Yeah. All right. Well, you two hang on. Peter, thank you for your time tonight, and we're going to go to a break, Tom, so hang on to your hats. Here we go.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefoot?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines Report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are around the world, thank you for joining us tonight on Spaced Out Sunday. This is your host in the driver's seat tonight, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer. And I am just pleased as punch to be able to have as my guest tonight Mr. Tom Whitmore from the Mutual UFO Network, the nationwide organization of volunteer, let us say, field investigators for this amazing phenomena called UFOs, UAP, and all that entails. So, Tom, how have you been, buddy? Thank you for allowing Peter to step in at the beginning and top of the hour here, and I thought that was kind of fun getting those sighting reports from him.
Hi, Michael. I'm really happy to be here. Yeah, it was great listening to those reports, and I wish Peter the best of luck, and I appreciate the work that he does.
Yeah, I think we should. What I'll do is mention for sure the National UFO Reporting Center hotline is probably the longest, the oldest UFO hotline phone number out there. It's in all of the FAA towers in every airport around the United States and different parts around the world, and all the law enforcement officers in every community that we have in America has this hotline phone number. If you want to write it down out there as a listener, it's called, it's 206-722-3000. 206-722-3000 is the hotline phone number to literally call into the National UFO Reporting Center if you have an interesting sighting report. And believe it or not, more times than not, Peter Davenport himself will answer that phone. It's amazing how he does that, Tom.
Yes, he must keep busy. He must spend many hours a day following up on all that. Yeah,
and of course, we want to admonish all of the young Zoomers out there, the young kids who really don't take this very seriously, to not give them such a hard time, because there's many, many prank phone calls that come into the New Fork phone number that he has to field as well, just because he's courteous and he wants to at least pick up the phone whenever he can, and it wastes his time. So please leave him alone as far as those prank phone calls go. And by the way, you can save him a lot of time, just like yourself, Tom, with MUFON. If people would actually go to the website and fill out the online reporting form that Peter has on the UFOcenter.org or .com. I know that MUFON has the same thing. Isn't that correct, Tom?
Yes, we have a website at MUFON.com, and there is a way to report sightings on there. And there's actually quite a bit of free information on our website, and we welcome new members. There's a way to sign up with MUFON and become a member, and even start the process of becoming a field investigator.
Oh, yes. And if you're interested at all in this unique phenomena of trying to figure out the unknown in these objects that seem to be flying around willy-nilly over our skies, that is a good way to get involved in the MUFON website, because there is, like you said, lots of free information and potentially reports that you might resonate with. For instance, if there's a report in your neck of the woods, it'd be interesting to see if there's anything similar on the MUFON website.
Yes, and we have the latest UFO news, and we have the latest 20 or so sightings in our reporting network itself. So I encourage anyone, if you're not a MUFON member, go on to MUFON.com and take a look. There's an awful lot of information on there. And if you are a member, I'm sure if you haven't been to the website lately, please go back and take a look at us.
Yes. And, I've been a member of MUFON since '95 myself. And I do appreciate all of the information that I can get as a member as well. And so it's fun to be able to get that newsletter and some of the updates by email that happen as well. So it's something it's so inexpensive to become a member that if you really want to be in the know, that's one way of doing it right there. So, by the way, let's get into a little bit of you, Tom. This is a good time for us to be able to explain to our listeners around the world. Of course, a lot of people will know who Tom Whitmore is. You've been involved in this field and the paranormal as well for decades. But literally, tell us a little bit about your background, maybe where you came from initially, where you grew up, and then we'll get into how you got interested in this field.
Sure, Michael. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My dad was a jet pilot. He was a B-47 pilot. He started out with Douglas Aircraft as a production test pilot, and Douglas Aircraft had a huge plant in Tulsa. In fact, during World War II, they had a bomber mass production line there. And I grew up in the 50s. I was born in 1953, and as we all know, those of us that are in the UFO field, that the UFO sighting scene was very active in the 1950s and the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
So I grew up hearing about UFO sightings, and it was active on the media. There were reports on television. There were programs about UFOs on television. The subject was taken seriously in the mainstream media up until the time that the Air Force got out of the public UFO business in 1969. And I'm a child of the Cold War, growing up in the 50s, and we grew up under this cloud, this shadow of possible nuclear war. So the military-industrial complex was very big in our minds at the time, and being in the family of my father was working for a defense contractor, that was very much in my psyche and in our family's minds. So in the 50s, I saw programs like The Twilight Zone and, programs like that. And it affects our psychology, Michael, as you know. And we grew up with this idea of the possibility of extraterrestrial life visiting us here on Earth.
Yes.
And I noticed in the 1970s, there was even a big wave then, around 1973. I didn't get active in the UFO field until the 1990s, but in the 1980s, a couple of things happened that did pique my interest. One thing was I happened to turn on the TV one day, and I saw a program called UFO Cover-Up Live, and that's a whole subject in and of itself that we can talk about later if you like.
Right.
And also walking down the street, I noticed a UFO magazine in a storefront, and I bought it and I read it. And at the time, these kind of Bill Cooper rumors were running around, and I was reading that. But it piqued my interest because I've always been interested in history, and I've been reading stacks of history books since my teenage years. And in the later stages of that, in the 1980s, I got interested in espionage and intelligence work and psychological warfare. And these two things came together in my mind, these UFO rumors and this whole concern with UFO field being penetrated by intelligence agents, et cetera, and my interest in history. So I started digging into the UFO field and reading more about it, and read quite a bit of literature. Now, at the time, MUFON was being run out of Seguin, Texas, and I was living in San Antonio, Texas, which I had lived there for 35 years, from the early 80s up until almost the present time. And it was run by Walt Andrus in Seguin, Texas, and I started attending the local MUFON meetings, and I joined MUFON, and I took the field investigator's exam. I became a field investigator. Eventually, I became the state section director in San Antonio for a while. And then in 1995, I was invited onto the board of directors of MUFON. I've had that privilege of being on the board since 1995. So I've been through all of the regimes since then. Walt Andrus and John Schuessler and James Carrion and Clifford Clift and Dave McDonald and Jan Harzan. So I've seen it all.
Oh my goodness, Tom! I had no idea that you have been involved at that level in MUFON for so long. Since 1995, you have literally seen a whole lot of changes for the good, I suppose, over the years that you've gone through. That's fascinating that you've seen that so up close.
Well, I'm kind of an old sea dog, Michael.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot, and a lot of things don't surprise me. Some of the things that I see going on in the UFO field today, to me, are, I don't mean to write it off, but it seems almost old hat in certain ways, and I see certain patterns, arising and re-arising.
Right.
And, I can kind of see the difference in the generations, the younger generation's view, their virtues and their vices, as opposed to my generation's virtues and vices. And it is fascinating to see that.
You're right, Tom. You and I are basically the same era. I was born in 1952 myself, and I remember back in those days when we wanted to find information or we wanted to be entertained, we had an opportunity maybe for our television sets from 3 different channels. That's about it, and those were black and white TVs back in those days. You remember that era? And nowadays, the information that is available is just mind-boggling. And the fact that it's being used and used up so quickly is just mind-boggling, with the whole idea that people's attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter. But you have lived through it all, it sounds like.
Yes, and I sometimes harken back to the good old days when you used to have to go to the library. And you used to have to go to the reference desk and dig a little bit to get some information. And that's one thing I still really enjoy today. I've been able to not only go to the library, but go to the Library of Congress. And that's something that just going there and being there is a pleasure. But at the same time, I'm on the internet like everyone else. I live with my telephone. I've got a very short attention span. I jump around from one thing to another. So I think I understand what's going on, at least partly, with the younger generation. Yeah.
It's, it's like you said, old dogs like us, if we can learn those new tricks with the technology, I think we bring some depth to the idea of research. You certainly have with your abilities now, being on the East Coast and having access to the actual Library of Congress. You've got to tell us how you made that move and when you decided to do this research full time.
Well, I had a situation where my life situation changed, Michael. Unfortunately, my wife passed away in 2017. I have a 24-year-old daughter, and she's grown, and she had moved out of the house. So here I was at age 65, 66, and I had the opportunity to retire. So I chose to do that, and I did retire completely from my full-time position last July. And I thought, I'm interested in this subject of MJ-12, the history of the MJ-12 affair, and the legends involved with MJ-12. And my thinking has been, I want to be as close as I can to government document sources. And those involve two main points, or two main locations. One is the National Archives here in near where I live, and then the other is the Library of Congress. Now, the National Archives is extended out to the presidential libraries as well, and those are scattered around the country, as you know, based on each president. But I intentionally chose a location to live in an apartment complex here. I'm 5 to 10 minutes away from the National Archives, and then I can take the bus and the metro downtown to go to the Library of Congress. So those are my two main points. And also, I'm equidistant between two local MUFON groups, between the Virginia MUFON group, which usually meets in Fairfax, Virginia, and the Maryland MUFON group, which usually meets in Annapolis, Maryland. So not only do I have the National Archives and the Library of Congress, but I've got two MUFON groups.
Oh, my. You are in hog heaven here in your retirement years, kind of like myself. Literally, I've now been divorced for almost 8 years, but all my kids are grown. And it is that kind of freeing idea at this time in our lives. I think you and myself and people like us, Tom, are becoming probably more effective than we have ever been in our lifetime in this time, where we have the ability and the knowledge to be able to follow up on some of our avocations there. So that is fascinating that you have that ability now to get into the research that you're really into. And I know the MJ-12 whole issue is such a big, huge subject. We definitely have to get into that in more detail and what you're finding out. And any other subjects that you want to bring to the table tonight, because this is fun. This is fast-breaking information from a fellow like you who has been able to go through the libraries and be able to find the information that is probably just sitting there waiting for someone like you to come along.
Well, I wish, Michael, that there was real, genuine MJ-12 information ready to be pulled out of the National Archives. But unfortunately, it's not quite that simple.
Right.
But it's a pleasure for me to go into the archives and to be able to pull genuine, authentic government documentation. And people get their thrills and their kicks in different ways. But I get a kick out of that. I get a real thrill to sit at a table and look at actual historical documents.
Yes, and probably have a feeling that it's very possible that you might be one of a very small handful of people who might have even seen this document. You know, that's got to be a rush, actually.
Oh, we can talk about that. And there are a couple of instances where I've looked at some original documents that are not necessarily MJ-12 per se, but that are related either directly or indirectly. And that's something that fascinates me, and I get such a charge out of seeing such things. Yeah.
I'll bet you're the guy that in the old days would really be excited when they ran across something in the card catalog that no one, one of those brand new entries in a card catalog that wasn't really used very often. That would have excited me back in the old days when you actually had to go through manually into the that little cabinet, with all those 3x5 cards and try to find something new and unique.
Well, at the Library of Congress, at the very entrance where you walk into the library area, which is in the Adams building, the Science and Technology and Business building, right by the front door where you walk inside into the reading areas, they have a huge card file up against the wall, and you can literally pull it out and you can see the cards in there just like the old days.
Oh my, that would be fascinating, wouldn't it be? You could spend hours just going through a couple drawers, I'm sure.
I get a lot of pleasure out of finding obscure things, and in the big scheme of the world, MJ-12 is a pretty obscure subject, and even despite that, in working on this, Michael, I've got a to-do list a mile long.
Oh, I'll bet. Looking into one aspect of it, all of a sudden you end up getting a to-do list, a follow-up list that gets out of hand, I would imagine, and then subjects underneath that. And of course, you're doing this hopefully with a little bit of, I don't know if you have spreadsheets or, at least your laptop that you can use to keep notes on, but that is hard work in the trenches, doing the mole work of finding out what's really out there. That's fascinating stuff.
Yes, I have a spreadsheet, and that's part of my problem. It's too easy to make a list, and I'm a big, huge list maker. I make list after list, and I overwhelm myself. But it's better to have more to do than have nothing to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you have the feeling when you wake up in the morning of not wondering what you want to do today, but whether you want to, follow up on all these myriad of details that you've been, enticed to follow down the rabbit holes of these fascinating archives that you've been involved with. So, oh my goodness, that has got to be an extraordinary experience when you run across something that captures your attention right off the bat, maybe. Tell us about that, and we've got about another minute to go, but I would imagine that every once in a while you've got a long time of boredom punctuated with some really fascinating things that pop up in front of you that you have to follow.
Well, one of the things that has happened recently, Michael, is that one of the board members on MUFON, who's now retired from the board, is Robert Wood, and he also has his son Ryan, and they're the authors of the website majesticdocuments.com. And Robert Wood has been a dear friend of mine for years, and last month in February, I actually flew out there to Newport Beach where he lives and visited with him. And Mr. Wood has lent me virtually his entire personal collection of documents related to his research. And this amounted to 8 boxes of documents. And so far, I've worked through 3.5. And I've literally looked through probably over 1,000 documents, maybe a couple of thousand documents.
Oh, my.
And that's keeping me busy.
Well, Tom, let me just jump in here. This is almost as if, for instance, when the Admiral Wilson's smoking gun UFO memo was found in Edgar Mitchell's banker boxes full of documents, this is even better because Robert Wood and Ryan Wood are still around to ask follow-up questions on. This must be fascinating for you.
Oh, yes. And I did sit down with Bob to go over his history. And I have that on recording, which I need to transcribe. But that is it's a great thing. And I've been very appreciative of him, of having the trust in me, entrusting this material to me. And as I work, what I'm doing is I'm working through each box, and I'm indexing and cataloging what I'm finding in there, and taking any extra notes, and then I'm shipping it back to him as I complete each box.
Oh, fascinating. Thank God that you're doing that. We're going to go to a break right now, and we will be back in about 6 minutes. So hang on to your hats, folks. This is Spaced Out Sunday.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblelicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to interview
all right, buddy.
For weekend. Woo!
Hang on.
Tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our hour number 2 of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, the paranormal lawyer, Michael W. Hall. Thanks for joining me tonight, and we welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliate, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And on the digital side, we are very proud to be on Revolution Radio. And of course, don't forget you can always check our archives out for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And do me a favor, will you please hit that subscribe button? You'll get notified the next time we go live on the air. Our website, of course, is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. And we are now back for our second live hour with a good friend and a fantastic researcher, Tom Whitmore from MUFON. And we were talking about some of the pleasures, I guess, and some of the hard work, obviously, that a researcher like him does when he gets into the National Archives, believe it or not, maybe even some presidential libraries down the road as well. And are you doing okay, Tom? Thanks for hanging in there with me.
I'm fine, Michael, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to be on your program tonight.
Well, thank you so much. This is really a pleasure for me to be able to talk coast to coast tonight. Here I am in Seattle, and you are on the East Coast in the D.C. area. And by the way, what is springtime looking like out there? Supposedly, those cherry blossoms are supposed to be popping out. I don't know.
They sure are, Michael, and they are just fantastic. I grew up in Tulsa where we had 4 seasons, and the dogwood trees were pretty, but these cherry blossoms are almost beyond description. The colors are so intense, it's almost like the trees are generating their own light. And the good thing is these kinds of trees are all over town. You don't necessarily have to go downtown to Washington, D.C. to see them around, but actually yesterday I got up early and I took the metro downtown and walked down on the mall because I wasn't sure if the cherry trees lined the National Mall. But I walked down there and I got some good photographs or some good videos, some short videos of them around the area of the Capitol building. And I posted that on my website on on my Facebook page on Tom Whitmore on Facebook, if you want to see that.
Yeah.
And the trees are just beautiful. And there is a lot of concern about going out in public now, but I can tell you when I got on the metro, there was hardly anybody on there. And I was actually down at Union Station, at the metro station there, and there was virtually not a single person there for a while. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah.
And I was there pretty early in the morning, and they actually had some crowds of people there yesterday. And there was some concern about from the public authorities about that.
Yeah, I did see your Facebook post, and I was just shocked that there were hardly any people at all in the shots that you took there. It's almost like a ghost town when there are people there, all hunkered down, but basically not using the public thoroughfares. So thank you for keeping us involved, and we will definitely be checking in with your Tom Whitmore Facebook page just to kind of keep up to speed on what's going on the East Coast. Very fascinating. Good job.
Sure. Yes.
Well, we've got another full hour to go and more if we can use that. So I want to allow you to kind of pick and choose the direction that we would like to go in this hour, and kind of I'll follow your lead in follow-up questions, but what should we talk about next in what you are doing currently?
Well, I can go over some things I've been doing, Michael. When I first got here, of course, I had to move into my apartment, and that took about a week. But then I made a beeline for the National Archives, and my first objective was to see the actual Cutler Twining memo.
Oh,
and
my. That would have been fascinating for the first thing that you do at the National Archives. But listen, let's build up the suspense. Tell us, on that first time, that first trip, what did you do stepping out of your apartment? How did you make that trip to the National Archives that day?
It was, well, I'd have to go back a little bit in history, because the previous year, the MUFON Symposium was in New Jersey. And we had actually been invited by the MUFON board, had kind of an inside invitation by Luis Elizondo to have a tour of the Pentagon, which did not come through. So I ended up having an extra day in which I didn't have any activities going on. So I took that day to actually enroll at the National Archives. Now, that was in 2018. And I went through the process of enrolling there, and it's really, in terms of actual importance, it's not much more than a library card. You know, you do have to give them your ID. They take a picture of you. You have a short computer orientation. And the controls there, in terms of document controls, are very strict, as you can imagine.
Wow.
And then before I moved up here, I came up to the Washington, D.C. area for a couple of days to find an apartment, and I centered it around the National Archives. Now, there are two main locations in Washington, D.C. There's the classical building that's on Pennsylvania Avenue area in downtown Washington, D.C., but their archives only go up to World War I. And the modern archives are at the National Archives 2, which is on the Delphi Road, and it's almost right next to the University of Maryland. So after enrolling and getting my card, and then a year later, I come back here, and I find an apartment that's within 10 minutes of the place. And so, like I said, after I moved in, then I made a beeline for the National Archives. And now you want to understand that there in the reading area, there is a room where they have people that help you find things. And in these archives and in the Library of Congress, they have what are called finder's aids. And there's a room in the National Archives study area where they have all of these finder's aids, and most of them are in ring binder notebooks. And they have personnel that help with the civilian government side, such as the State Department, and then they have archivists that help with the military side. So the first thing I did was I went in there and I talked with the archivists, and they helped me find the Cutler Twining memo. And you fill out what they call a pull slip, and it involves the box number and the reference number, et cetera, that's involved in pulling the information.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. And now, there are just a few people on the planet probably who do not know what the Cutler Twining memo is. Why don't we lay the groundwork, if you can, on why this was so important for you to look at in your eyes?
Well, in the history of the MJ-12 affair, the MJ-12 documents arose around the time of 1983, 1984, when one of the top researchers at the time, Bill Moore, and Stanton Friedman, and a person by the name of Jamie Chandray, were doing certain UFO investigations. They were doing a lot of documentary investigations. And the original set of MJ-12 documents appeared anonymously at Jamie Chandray's mailbox in 1983, 1984 area. Excuse me. Meanwhile, William Moore had a post office box in Arizona where he lived for a while, in Prescott, Arizona. and he had been receiving postcards with cryptic messages. And these messages involved such words as Reese's Pieces, and there was actually an archivist there at the time by the name of Reese. And it also, these postcards also made a reference to numbers, which turned out later to be the record numbers of of where this document would be located in the National Archives.
Okay.
So, in the original MJ-12 documents, in the Eisenhower briefing document, there's a list of the MJ-12 members, and one of those members was General Nathan F. Twining, who in the late 40s, at the time of the Roswell incident, was he was a 4-star general, and he was at the Wright-Patterson Wright Field, and then later during the Eisenhower briefing document era, which was 1952, and this is a question document. Okay, I'm not saying that it's authentic, but in that original MJ-12 document, the Eisenhower briefing document, he's listed as one of the MJ-12 members. Well, come along about 1987, Stanton Friedman had been bugging the archivists at the National Archives about MJ-12 material, and he came to know that certain material was being declassified. And meanwhile, William Moore had been receiving these cryptic postcards. Well, William Moore and Jamie Chandray went to the National Archives in 1987. They went through all the material that had been declassified, and they found this document stuck between two files in one of the record boxes. And this document it's a very short document, but it's an instruction to General Twining, and this is a question document, okay? But it's an instruction to General Twining that he would, in attending a meeting of the MJ-12 Special Projects Committee or Special Projects Group, that meeting would occur during the regular meeting with President Eisenhower rather than afterwards. That's basically what the document stated. But it had a key phrase in it, and that phrase was, "Your concurrence with the above arrangements is assumed," and I'll talk more about that later.
Yeah. Oh, my. So you now, is what you're saying, well, correct me if I'm wrong, are you actually handling the same document that Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray had actually researched and found prior to your being there?
Yes. The actual document is in the National Archives.
Now, that's got to be exciting right there. I mean, it would excite me to be able to see the actual paper, feel it. By the way, do they make you put gloves on this in this kind of a thing?
They don't. Now, I believe at the National Archives 1 downtown, if you're looking at the older documents, if you can actually touch them at all, I imagine you would wear gloves.
Yeah.
But not in this instance. Yes. And I got to see the actual document. Now, one of the interesting things in the National Archives is they have very strict controls, and you can't bring in any papers. If you take any notes, you have to use notebook paper that they supply. You can't bring in any pen. You can't use any pens. You have to use pencils that they supply.
Oh.
So, but they do allow you to take photographs. Like, you can just take your iPhone or your iPad and take photographs of the documents that you pull, from the archives. So naturally, I started taking pictures of everything, and that's on my blog site.
Yeah.
Which by the way is tomwhitmoreblog.wordpress.com.
Oh, wow.
So I go in there and I see the actual document, but attached to the document is a memorandum from the National Archives from the senior archivist. And this memorandum, which is also on my blog, which you can view, is an explanation that the document appeared mysteriously, anonymously, and that the archivists at the National Archives had done a pretty extensive search to see if they could find anything on MJ-12. And they described, where they went, to the National Security Council, to here and there. And they also checked with the Eisenhower Library. And the archivists and people that are knowledgeable about the document came up with a number of things that they found wrong with it. And I actually was able to have lunch with the supervising archivist that was involved with this at the time. Now this person was involved with this back in the 80s. And I was able to have lunch with this person and interview this person at length, because I was interested to find out how did that document get into the archives, because it did appear mysteriously. Now, this supervising archivist was adamant that the only way that document would have gotten in there is if someone had gone into the archives as a researcher on a researcher basis and then inserted that document into the box. And we also want to remember that at that time in the 1980s, the new National Archives building, or NARA 2, had not been built yet. It wasn't built until the 1990s. So this sequence of events in the 80s with the Cutler 20 memo occurred at the old National Archives building.
Ah.
And I verified with this archivist supervisor that's now retired that the security procedures were not quite as strict as they are today. And their control procedures are pretty darn strict. So the bottom line, as far as I can tell, is that probably somebody went into the archives reading room as a researcher and inserted that document into the box.
And you did mention that it was inserted in the box between files, right? It wasn't added to a specific file, right?
As far as I know, yes, that's how the story goes.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. My goodness. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that was the first thing I did. Now, in talking with these retired supervising archivists, the suggestion was to do an FOIA request to see if I could get the poll records from that time. And the time was specifically in July of 1987. And I did file an FOIA request with the National Archives. They did respond in a timely way. And within a month, I got an answer. And the answer was those records were destroyed some years back because they only retained them for so long.
And, of course, you're just talking the records of them pulling certain documents. You're not necessarily talking the government documents like a Twining memo being destroyed, right?
Right. It's the records of the poll.
Yeah.
The records of the poll slips, yes.
Okay. Well, that's a little less disconcerting, I suppose, but would have been interesting to get that information for sure. I'm glad that you thought of that idea to begin with. It kind of at least closes a door that, you wonder whether it's open or not, because that's a lot of what you do, I would imagine, is try to plug the holes, open those doors, or at least find out that those doors are not going to be opened to be able to pinpoint your research.
Well, that is a large part of what I have been doing, Michael, is what I call confirmation. Like you said, it would have been exciting to see the original Cutler 20 memo. And when I went into the building and saw it, that was confirmation on my part. Because as a UFO person, and all of us UFO people out here, we read books and we read about it in books, but rarely do we ever actually get to physically verify something and confirm it. And that's what I was able to do. And this brings up another related topic, in that this documentation that I've received from the Wood private collection, there is a copy of another Cutler 20 memo on a different date. I think it's a couple of years later, I think in 1954. And it's a memorandum that from Robert Cutler to General Twining, giving him instructions about a top secret meeting that he was to attend. And it's been verified it wasn't a UFO related meeting. It is a different subject. But he gives very specific instructions about maintaining security. And in this second document, which I've received from the Wood Private Collection, in that document, it has a similar phrase: your concurrence with the above arrangements is assumed.
Oh.
Well, in the upper left-hand part of that page, there is writing from Stanton Friedman. And Stanton Friedman says he made a note that he got the copy of that memorandum at the Library of Congress. Now, the Library of Congress is a different department than the National Archives, okay? So I recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I went down to the National Archives, the Library of Congress, to see if I could find that document. And I went to the Twining material, which I'd been through some of it before. I went to the Twining material, and I started working through the box, which I thought would have been the right time period, the right subject matter for this memo to be in. But the material in the box was things like travel arrangements and informal meetings and things like that. That it wasn't anywhere near the level of this kind of, secret, important communication between Robert Cutler and General Twining. So I was referred to an archivist there at the Library of Congress, and this person undertook a search for me. She went through the Twining material in the Library of Congress. She went into the classified vault, and she even followed up for me the next week and made a special effort to find it. And she wasn't able to locate that document.
Oh, my goodness. This is exciting stuff. You're kind of following rabbit holes and finding dead ends and then having to backtrack, it sounds like. Listen, hold on right now. We're going to now take our next 6-minute break or so. And we're going to come back, and I think if we could get into some more details of what the heck we are actually talking about on this Twining-Cutler memo. I think people will be fascinated to find out what this thing says. So hang on. We'll be right with you on Spaced Out Sunday.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as THAL. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefoot?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblelicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Okay, we are back with Spaced Out Sunday, and your host Michael W. Hall here, along with our very special guest Tom Whitmore from MUFON, the researcher archivist extraordinaire that we're talking about now, going through the actual archives in the nation's capital of all the UFO material that is still out there to be found out. And Tom, thank you for joining me back again for this next at least half hour worth of material that we're going to be able to share with folks. We were just at the point where you were doing some forensic document analysis. Basically, that's kind of what you end up becoming, I suppose, is someone who can determine now with your expertise a little bit more about these documents than the normal researcher, I would imagine.
Yes, and Michael, thanks. I'm pleased to be here. Yes, and I don't claim to be a forensic expert at all. I'm not trained in forensics, but I think as time goes on and the more experience that I get, I'm going to be learning more and more about the forensic side of it. And one of the things that is difficult in the MJ-12 subject is that most of the documents that are questioned but that are interesting in the MJ-12 affair are photocopies. And the documents that were received by Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray and them originally were actually photographs of documents that they received on a roll of 35 millimeter film. So forensically, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to authenticate documents that are not in the original form.
Yeah, but of course you are as well hooked up and basically being mentored by the big granddaddy of the forensic document analysis, Dr. Robert Wood. So fascinating that you're able to at least glean from his knowledge as you go along what's real and not real.
Dr. Wood and his son Ryan did a huge amount of work back in the 1990s, in the late 90s, and they actually received a grant from Joe Firmage, another well-known person in the UFO field. They received a grant from Joe Firmage to study the UFO, or the MJ-12 documents, and the Woods went to the National Archives, and they pulled a huge number of documents. And I know that because I just went through 2 boxes of them. Most of the documents are related to the Research and Development Board, which is under Vannevar Bush. And that group started out as the Office of Scientific Research in World War II, and it became the Joint Research and Development Board just after World War II, and then finally the Research and Development Board. And Dr. Bush was in charge of that, and Dr. Bush has been suspected and believed, or he's alleged to have been one of the members of MJ-12. In fact, one of the key members of MJ-12. So the Woods have done a great deal of work in pulling documents out of the National Archives. In fact, they've done so much, they've already done a lot of the work that I was going to do myself.
Well, you're very fortunate to be able to climb up on their coattails in all that regard. But, this is fascinating stuff for me, being a lawyer, myself, being, a person that likes to have empirical evidence that you are dealing with on a daily basis. This is fascinating stuff. Before we get any farther to the details of the MJ-12 documents, we have kind of not really gone over the details of what the Cutler-Twining memo actually says. For some of the folks out there who might not know, is there any way we can give a synopsis potentially of what the document actually says?
Sure, I can read it for you verbatim right here. It's not very long.
Oh, wonderful.
But this is exactly what it says. It's dated July 14, 1954. In the upper right-hand corner, it says top secret restricted security information memorandum for General Twining, subject NSC/MJ-12 Special Studies Project. And the text says this: the President has decided that the MJ-12 SSP briefing should take place during, underlined, the already scheduled White House meeting of July 16, rather than following it as previously intended. More precise arrangements will be explained to you upon arrival. Please alter your plans accordingly. Your concurrence in the above change of arrangements is assumed. Robert Cutler, Special Assistant to the President.
Very short and sweet, isn't it?
Yes. Now, people have found 20 things wrong with that very short document. But
right,
that's
sure.
actually what it says.
Well, and you mentioned something that jumped out at me real quickly that maybe you can explain. It was mentioning MJ-12 SSP. Have you figured out what the SSP would stand for?
Yes, Special Studies Project.
Okay.
MJ-12 Special Studies Project.
Very interesting. Okay. And have you heard that term being used in other documents at all? Just not MJ-12, but MJ-12 Special Special. What was it again?
Special Studies Project.
Special Studies Project. Yeah.
If you go on the Woods website, majesticdocuments.com, you'll see many more documents that basically came through the channel of Timothy Cooper, another UFO researcher, and that's another subject. But the MJ-12 title or nomenclature is all over the place. We've had Majestic 12 and MJ-12 and Magic 12. If you get into Robert Collins' book, Exempt from Disclosure, he lists a whole lot of other terms and nomenclature that MJ-12 allegedly evolved into over the years. And the government is always reorganizing things, as you know. And we don't have any firm confirmation that MJ-12, if it existed, ever existed. So, there are variations in the MJ-12 nomenclature.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But that's fascinating that you're finding the reference in many different places, MJ-12. Now, by the way, is there an actual listing, Tom, of are there 12 members of MJ-12, or are there more or less? And who are those names?
Well, the original list came from the so-called Eisenhower briefing document, and yes, they were 12 names, and they were names like James Forrestal. Now, the date of the Eisenhower briefing document was November 18, 1952, and General Eisenhower had been elected president. He had just been elected president. He was getting ready to take office in January of 1953. So the date of the Eisenhower briefing document, which is a question document, and many things have been found wrong with it, and it's almost certainly not authentic. But the date of the document is November 18, 1952. So the list of the MJ-12 members allegedly would have been the list of MJ-12 that existed at that time.
I see.
And the people that are named in the document are people like James Forrestal, who had been the Secretary of Defense, and he unfortunately had passed away, and he was replaced by General Walter Bedell Smith. You have Vannevar Bush. You had General Hoyt Vandenberg, who unfortunately at that time was dying of cancer. You had General Nathan Twining, who in the early 50s, he was the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and then later became the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. You had General Twining. You also had General Montague, who was involved with the Kirtland Air Force Base area, Sandia area there in New Mexico. And you had certain civilian-type scientists like Jerome Hunsaker and Detlef Bronk. There's a person by the name of Donald Menzel, who was a Harvard astronomer, and he was a notorious UFO, became known as a notorious UFO debunker. So, there are 12 people on the list for sure.
and of course, Donald Menzel being on the list was a major shocker to anyone in ufology, thinking, why would a famous debunker of UFOs secretly be on the ultimate list of insiders for the whole subject? It wasn't that fascinating.
Well, it certainly surprised Stanton Friedman. There had been rumors and allegations that Moore and Friedman and that group of people had turned up most of the names on the MJ-12 list before the document appeared. But Stanton Friedman did express great surprise that Menzel was on that list. You also had Sidney Sowers, who was an admiral, and he had actually been a close advisor to President Truman. He was very much on the inside. And we had Gordon Gray, who was another political insider and an elite political person. So these were either top generals or they were scientists who were at the very top of their field. And then you had a couple of political insiders as well.
Yeah. And something that is glaring to me as an omission from that list was anyone dealing with the faith-based community. You would think someone, for instance, like a Billy Graham, some kind of an older gentleman even at that time who would have been a faith-based person of religion, even the Catholic Church, a cardinal or something, might have been on that list, but obviously no one like that at all, just military and government insiders. Very fascinating.
Yes, and there's a book you may be aware of by John Alexander, UFO Myths, Conspiracies, and Realities, and he insinuated that the MJ-12 group may have existed, but that it was actually concerned with continuity of government.
Yeah.
But if you look at the list of the people on the Eisenhower briefing document, that wouldn't be the list of people that I would put together for continuity of government. The first person I would go to would have been General Groves, who ran the Manhattan Project. And General Groves had been responsible for building the Pentagon. I mean, he would be the man I would go to first if I was concerned about building continuity of government facilities.
Oh, good point.
A lot of these, another obvious person would be Robert Oppenheimer, because if they're concerned about nuclear war and continuity of government, he was definitely an expert. And there are other scientists at Los Alamos, other top scientists like Dr. Teller, that would have been obvious choices to be concerned about nuclear war and continuity of government. This list of people, I can't say 100%, and I'm not a scientist myself, that I would have picked all the people on this list if I was the president, choosing to create an MJ-12. But it certainly is closer to the subject of, the UFO crash retrievals and alien bodies and all that than a group concerned with continuity of government.
Oh, good point there. That's a very good point. As a matter of fact, you mentioned something that piqued my interest a little bit a while back. Did you think, or do you think, that these people that were picked for MJ-12 were done so by President Truman, for instance, prior to Eisenhower? Or do you even think that this group might have been picked by some other organization or group and then presented to the president at that time, either Eisenhower or Truman, as a response to 1947 or even before then? I don't know. What's your feeling on that?
Well, it would be pure speculation.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of ways to view this whole scenario, because on the one hand, it's all based on if there was a Roswell crash and a craft was recovered and bodies were recovered and all this, and possibly even one live alien. Okay.
Right.
And there's a possibility that this group could have been created, which mythically has studied the problem and farmed out the research and controlled the information to the public and all this conspiracy theory about MJ-12. But another theory could be that it was really dealt with through regular government military channels, but under the most extreme secrecy. So it would have been, and some of the questioned documents in the Timothy Cooper group of documents imply that General Twining was assigned initially to review and check into the Roswell crash aftermath, going to Albuquerque, checking at Sandia, and checking at Holloman Air Force Base, and so on and so forth, and then writing reports back to Truman and back to the top people. And so from that basis, and from the basis that Dr. Vannevar Bush was very much involved in government technology research, it seems common sense to me that conferring with the Air Force Chief of Staff at the time, which would have been General Vandenberg and General Twining and Dr. Bush, that they, if I were the president, I would have said, okay, I know a couple of people that I'd like to be on that list, but why don't you propose the other members, okay? And so I would think that 2 or 3 of the top people that were involved in the aftermath of the Roswell crash would have recommended a lot of these people on the list. And then the president, who at the time was President Truman, might have wanted a couple of people that he knew that he could trust to be on the list.
Yes. Yeah.
That's just pure speculation. Okay.
Right. Well, that's informed speculation for sure, given the fact that, as you well know, I've been involved with this Admiral Wilson smoking gun memo that Grant Cameron, a client of mine, had uncovered. And, there is that kind of feel in that document as well, where certain people within the military, industrial and government complex might know what's going on, but it is so stovepiped, so compartmentalized that potentially even as high up as a Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Wilson, J2 at the time, would have been kept out of the loop, potentially on this whole issue of, UFOs and reverse engineering projects and that stuff. So you can imagine there was a lot of other folks that could have been on that list that might not have even known what was going on as well.
Definitely. And I have a good friend who prefers to remain anonymous, but he's a terrific internet researcher. And he has really researched the whole framework of these special access programs, and he had identified specific committee types and specific committee configurations and what types of people and their titles and positions would have been on these key committees that review these special access programs. And some of these special access programs are unacknowledged in their carve-outs, and so on and so forth. So if this information exists, and people like Eric Davis have said that they do, but we can't get any firm confirmation of it. But as these special access programs exist, they are held under the tightest secrecy. Now, you don't even have to. It doesn't have to be a UFO. If you think back on the time of the stealth bomber and stealth fighter era during the 1980s, they developed those under the strictest secrecy. So you can only imagine what kind of secrecy they would maintain if they were actually dealing with real alien craft. Oh. And if you don't have a need to know, and if you're not on their so-called bigot list, they don't tell you anything. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are.
Oh, it's fascinating. The Admiral Wilson memo mentions the fact that there were not even any White House personnel or employees, government, congressional people at all on the bigot list for this project, this contractor's project of potential reverse engineering. I'm curious because you sounds like you have a very knowledgeable person who might have had some opportunity to vet some of the special access and unacknowledged special access programs mentioned in the Admiral Wilson memo. Has he or she come up with any glitches in those named projects and personnel maybe even mentioned in the memo? Are you there, Tom?
I'm sorry. Oh. He's very much immersed in the whole nomenclature in the Admiral Wilson document, and I'd like to point out a distinction with the Admiral Wilson document because the MJ-12 documents, in almost all instances, are question documents in certain instances have been shown to be almost certainly not authentic. Now, with the Admiral Wilson document, and one of the problems with the other MJ-12 documents is a lack of provenance, okay? But with the Admiral Wilson document, we pretty much have a provenance and a chain of custody, as I understand it, because allegedly Eric Davis interviewed Admiral Wilson, and then he wrote up a memorandum, and he distributed it at least to Robert Bigelow, and I think it was distributed to other people at NIDS, one of those people being Edgar Mitchell. And what my contact has told me is that when Edgar Mitchell unfortunately passed away, his family was not interested in keeping all of his files and his records, and that a certain person at this point is unknown. I don't know the identity of this person, and I don't think this person wants his identity known.
Right.
But that person recovered some of Edgar Mitchell's materials, and in those files is the so-called Admiral Wilson document. That person, in turn, passed the document onto James Rigney, an Australian, at a U.S. space conference. And James Rigney, in turn, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know at this point, he in turn gave it to Grant Cameron, and I presume that Grant Cameron showed it to other people because it showed up on Reddit. So we have something of a chain of custody here.
Oh, we do. It's very fascinating. Matter of fact, maybe the next half hour we can get into more of a comparison between the two researching that you've done and that your friend has done as well on that Admiral Wilson thing. It's fascinating, the correlations between the two and how they've been leaked and whether the provenance has been proven or not. But wow, this is fascinating stuff. And you are in the thick of things, not only with the Cutler Twining, but now it looks to me that we've got some information that is going to be shared potentially in the next half hour on the Admiral Wilson memo as well. So hang in there, Tom. We are going to be right back. And after this 6-minute break or so, and we will be with us back at Spaced Out Sunday. Hang on.
Hey, space travelers. This is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. t-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblelicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am.
Well, welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. I am Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, and we are welcoming back, of course, everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we're also on Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always check out our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button when you go there. You'll get notified for all of our upcoming broadcasts. Our website, of course, is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features, including rocking out to some more Bumblefoot, of course, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and keeping up to date on our SOR News Wire and so much more. So, boy, we have been educated tonight by Mr. Tom Whitmore, a MUFON Board of Directors member, who is literally embedded himself into the National Archives on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. And Tom, thank you for being with us and educating us on what the heck is going on out there, all the documentation and the actual hard evidence that you're finding here when it comes to UFOs and UAP.
Yes, Michael, I'm delighted to be with you and with Space Out Radio tonight.
Oh, I tell you what, Dave Scott is probably very jealous right now of myself being able to interview you. I know he's a good friend of yours, and we are kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of what it's like actually to uncover some of these documents that we're talking about. The Cutler Twining memo was very short and sweet, but very interesting to think about. What is your overall feelings at this point as you are kind of following in the footsteps of the famous researcher Stanton Friedman in this area? I know Stanton was on both sides of the fence on this thing periodically, but basically had some trepidation about the authenticity of these documents. Are you coming up with any details at this point that are making you lean one way or the other?
Michael, I do want to say this, that to be a researcher with any honesty, I have to view this in such a way that the chips must fall where they may. And to be a responsible researcher, I have to follow the evidence. Now, I have to insist that it is very difficult, if not impossible, to get actual confirmed, verified documentation as to the existence of MJ-12. The documentation that includes MJ-12 in it is questioned in almost all instances. Now, it's possible that one or two of these documents in this whole stack that we have, you look on the Majestic Documents website and elsewhere, it's possible that one or more of those documents are authentic. And that's where you get into the really hard nitty-gritty work of comparing, like textual analysis and forensic analysis and historical analysis. So I just want to say that if it turns out that I can prove that any of these documents are phony, if anyone will admit to forging them, then that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, exactly. And in reality, you are comparing typewriter fonts and those kinds of things as well, right?
Oh, yes, and that's already been done. And again, I'm not representing myself as a forensic expert. And there's so much involved in this. And like I said, I have a to-do list a mile long and all kinds of things to follow up on and people that I need to interview and talk to. And there are a lot of very direct and specific questions that I need to ask a number of people. And some of them are not very easy to get along with or not very easy to reach, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's got to be frustrating for a detail-oriented guy like yourself who wants to follow up on all the loose ends for sure. I often wonder when you are so focused on this kind of a project and you've got so many details to follow up on to try to get to the bigger overall picture, the truth of the matter. Do you ever wonder sometimes, do you ever pull back and just think, I think I'm just going to go to an unrelated file. Look and see what's in there. See if anything else pops up that might have something to do with what I'm doing on a general basis. I mean, sometimes you kind of have to change your focus just for your own sanity. Is that something that you end up doing?
Well, I have a bucket list, okay? There are about 10 other things I could be doing besides this that I would enjoy immensely. So, and sometimes I do want to just kind of set this aside and do something else, but time is short. And like I said, there's a lot to do, and I'm not getting any younger. And if I don't do the things that I know I should be doing, then I feel guilty. So I pretty much stick with it, with the MJ12 project. Now, in terms of looking at other things, like I said, Michael, I've gone through hundreds of documents from the Wood collection so far, and I have many, many more to go through. But there is a pattern that I'm noticing, or a pattern that I'm not noticing. MJ12 has been referred to as the Majestic 12. In all of the documents that I've looked at, and like I said, I've looked at many, I don't run across any other groups that are named like that. I don't see the Magnificent Seven or the Dirty Dozen or the Filthy Five or the Pistol Packing 15. This Majestic 12 appellation is unique. And you would think in going through, all of this stuff that you might see some other groups that are named similarly. And I'm not seeing that.
Wow. Now that is a great analysis. And that would only come from someone like yourself who has a large picture of the entire field, who also is delving into the details. So, for instance, you're right. You would think that prior to MJ12, there might be some group out there named something totally different, but have a name in front of it, project name, and maybe a number of people on the committee. You might think that would be a precursor to someone coming up with the idea of a magic 12 or Majestic 12 group. Very, very interesting you come up with that.
Yes, and I can't definitively state that there are any other groups, with kind of a special name like that. But like I said, I haven't run across any other groups. And the committees that do exist have pretty formal names, like the Armed Forces Special Weapons Project or the Joint Intelligent Objectives Agency, so on and so forth. These are pretty formally named groups and not like a nickname like MJ12. I'd just like to say as an aside, Michael, that I went on to the Air Force History website, and the Air Force History archives are at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. And as a lark, I just went into their search box and typed in Majestic to see what would turn up, if anything. Well, a reference turned up in their files with the word Majestic, and it refers to an operation in World War II as the United States was getting ready to invade Japan. They were invading the Japanese islands. And in one of those operations, this reference said that the operation name had been changed. I forget what the previous name was, but the previous name, the security had been compromised, so they changed the name of that operation, which is an invasion of a specific island, to Majestic. So that is one reference I have found with the word Majestic in it. And also Kevin Randall has written on his blog about a document that is NATO related that is termed Majestic. But in this particular instance, in this reference that I found, it gave specific file numbers and microfilm numbers to check. Well, at the Air Force archives in Maxwell Air Force Base, they have that information, but they also happen to have the copies of the microfilm at the National Archives. So I actually went up to the microfilm room because you probably know by now the way I've described what I do. I want to specifically identify and confirm things. And I went up there and I went into the specific microfilm roll, and I saw the operational plans for things before that and for things after that, but I never found the operational plan that was named Majestic. But just viewing that was interesting because the operational plans were very, very detailed with all kinds of lists and plans. So that's I just wanted to mention that as a little bit of an aside, something that's occurred in my activities.
Well, that is very interesting in itself. The fact that you couldn't find that document there. Now, by the way, was this spelled MAJ like Majestic, or was this?
Yes.
It was spelled the same then. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Fascinating.
And I actually went back, a roll or two. I went back at a microfilm roll and I went forward a microfilm roll, because maybe they just wrote down the wrong number or something.
Yeah.
As to the roll, but I couldn't find it. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist or that it was hidden or something. I was hoping I could confirm it, because if I could, I'd take a photograph and put it on my blog.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how it was used, and what kind of a sentence or language, and what kind of a stamp, classified or otherwise, that would have been on that page as well. You're doing your due diligence, buddy. Boy, I really admire how detailed you are in that regard. I would imagine periodically you're sitting there in the comfort and maybe solitude of the library there, and do you get inspiration periodically to do something that you didn't thought of previously that morning, or how does that work?
Well, here, let me give you an example of the kind of things that can happen. In my efforts, I was searching for an article that I knew existed that was an analysis of the MJ-12 documents. It was written way back in the 90s by a gentleman by the name of Joe Nickell. And Joe Nickell was associated with the Skeptical Inquirer, but he's actually a document expert, and he's very knowledgeable about document forgeries. Well, he doesn't use email. He doesn't use social media. I actually had to call him, and I actually had to make a phone call. And I got on the phone with him. We talked for about an hour. Well, he gave me a tip that Bill Moore has been accused of forging the MJ-12 documents. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he did. I don't know. In fact, I tend to believe that he didn't. But in the criticisms of Bill Moore, there was, on the Eisenhower briefing document, in a normal government document, and believe me, I've looked at hundreds of them, and the date format is pretty uniform. If today's date is March 23, 2020, in government format, it would be 23 space March space 2020. Well, on the Eisenhower briefing document, which is dated 18 November 1952, it was 18 space November, comma, 1952. And that is one of the things that tipped off these critics of the MJ-12 documents that as a red flag. Because, like I said, you can go through hundreds and hundreds of government documents, and even though the date format is not exactly the same in all instances, generally speaking, it's in that format that I mentioned, and it does not include that comma. Well, in this conversation with Joe Nickell, he said there may be examples of Bill Moore's letters that were written previously to the onset of the MJ-12 documents that have that date format in them, and those letters may be in the Phil Class archives at the American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia. Well, I got excited because, hey, here's a way I can verify something. And I got excited because Philadelphia is only a 3-hour drive away from me. I could leave here at 7 and be there at 10 in the morning. But I went on the American Philosophical Society website and checked the Phil Class archive, and I decided it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. So I went in and I just Googled the subject on the internet, and I turned up Kevin Randall's blog, and Kevin Randall had stated on his blog that Bill Moore had produced a book about the green fireball phenomenon. And in that book, he said that there were documents that Bill Moore had retyped that have the same date format as the Eisenhower briefing document. So I went on the internet and I ordered a copy, and I actually got a copy of the book, The Mystery of the Green Fireballs, edited by William Moore. This is an obscure book. Very few people ever have this. But I got the thing and I went straight through it, and I found 5 different documents, 4 of which were retyped by Moore that have the same date as the Eisenhower briefing document. And this Mystery of the Green Fireballs was written in, it was produced in August of 1983, and the MJ-12 documents did not appear until after that.
And so what you're saying, of course, is that the date format with the comma was what you found in this obscure book prior to the Eisenhower briefing document having that same format.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. Now, it's interesting. There are 5 instances of it in this book, The Mystery of the Green Fireballs. But in one of the documents, it appears to be an original document. I mean, it's a copy of an original document.
Okay.
That does not appear to be retyped. It looks like an actual document that has that comma in the date format. So that's a subject for further research and investigation.
Oh, my. So then you've got a double-edged sword going on there. You've got confirmation one way, but then you've got potentially an actual copy of a document with the same format that appeared in the Eisenhower briefing. Oh, that is very confusing. Fascinating.
Well, and another thing to note is that the comma in the date format appears in foreign documents. I have a copy of a document during the same time period as the late 40s, early 50s in General Twining's files that is from the New Zealand consulate, and that contains a comma in the date format. And I understand it's used in, maybe used in England or Canada or Australia. I haven't been able to find examples of it, but that date format does exist, but it's not used in U.S. government normally.
Yeah. Oh, that's really detailed work. Good job. That's fascinating. And that's exactly what you'd be doing, presenting a case in a court of law, obviously, finding out those details and trying to come up with a preponderance of the evidence one way or another to prove the truth, veracity, or falsity of that kind of documentation. Good for you, man.
Well, and another point I'd like to make, Michael, is that a lot of the criticism of some of the MJ-12 material is based on people saying, well, the military does it this way, and the military this, and the military that, documents not done that way. But when you look at the MJ-12 list and the MJ-12 committee, or the alleged committee, I should say, it's not a military organization. It's a kind of quasi-interdepartmental, secret, semi-governmental group, and it's not military per se. So I think it's possible to make an argument that some of the things in the MJ-12 documents, and particularly in the original Eisenhower briefing document, could have maybe not strictly conformed to military protocols.
Well, that would be interesting as well. Yeah, you're correct, because this was definitely a very high hybrid organization of scientists, of course, and military experts. Oh, that's very, very interesting when you throw that into the mix as well. Well, Tom, I tell you what, we are getting down to the last 2 or 3, 4, 5 minutes of our time together tonight. You have been just a champion tonight, getting us through 2.5 hours that went so quickly. I could not believe what we've accomplished in this period of time tonight on the show. But I want to make sure that people will understand maybe how they can, again, follow your research, and maybe tell us a little bit about what your plans are for the near future when you're out there. And we'll make sure that people are able to check on you in the future, on their own time as well. So give us your contact info or your research info.
Sure. Michael, I do have a blog. It's Tom Whitmore blog, which is all one word, .wordpress.com. And you can go in there and you can see pretty much what I've been up to since I've been here in the D.C. area. And you can leave a comment if you want to ask me a question or ask to make contact. I also am on Facebook, like I mentioned. Just look up under Tom Whitmore. There's a much younger, better-looking guy than I am now on there. But you can friend me on that and message me. And I also am on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @TomTulsa. That's @TomTulsa.
Oh, fascinating. Very good. What do you think is on your, I know you've got your own list a mile long of things that you're wanting to do next, but what do you think in the near term is something that you're going to be working on?
Well, as I said, Michael, I've been working on getting through the Wood private collection. That's going to take me a while, but I am making progress, and I intend to be finished with that by May. And I've got people that I need to interview, and I don't necessarily want to name any names, on public radio, but I have a list of people that have been involved in the history of the MJ-12 affair, and I'd just like to say that I consider the MJ-12 affair to basically span from the time of the late 1970s almost up to the present day. And we can think of all the things that have gone on since the late 70s, and the MJ-12 affair in the 80s, and the UFO cover-up live program, the Bob Lazar revelations, the Timothy Cooper documents, the Dan Burrish claims, Serpo, and even this latest document, what I call the ultra top secret document that appeared on the internet. And then we also have the Admiral Wilson document and the Kit Green document. So
yes,
even though those aren't strictly MJ-12, but they're certainly related. So I have a lot of people I need to talk to, and I have been concentrating on doing archival research and documentary research, but I've got field work to do as well.
Oh, fascinating. Well, thank you, Tom Whitmore. This has been a real pleasure for me. We are going to do the last half hour here and allow you to have some rest, and very great show tonight. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Michael. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right. Talk to you later. Okay. And folks, we'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefoot?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblelicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. For more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as THAL. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Okay, now I'm back, I think. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully you heard some of that. My diatribe that I went on for 10 minutes from the bottom of the hour before I turned my microphone back on. So sorry about that. I apologize. This, of course, is Michael W. Hall, and I am coming at you from Spaced Out Sunday right here on the mighty SOR. So I was just basically recapping what we were doing in the last 2.5 hours of our show from Peter Davenport, our first guest, and the sighting reports that were fascinating to hear that Peter was reporting to us from various parts around the country. He had something from Princeton, Maine just recently, this spherical object that turned itself into a chevron shape as well, coming out of the clouds. And then he mentioned the fact that there was a sighting just recently on March 17th from Oshawa, Ontario, which was basically a big, huge, bright light that seemed to appear out of nowhere from the east, from a witness that mentioned the fact that this thing made various course corrections and 90-degree angles and dropped down into close to the surface of the Earth during his sighting report. And then, of course, he was mentioning, Peter was, that 15 minutes later, a very similar object was sighted in Spokane, Washington, which, of course, would have been much farther west from Ontario. But the fact that it was very similar, the light and the way it behaved and changed angles and became real low to the ground as well was fascinating reports. It's always good to be able to get those reports from Peter Davenport as they come in to the National Reporting Center that he mans there. From literally all over the country and the world get funneled in the UFO reports from basically FAA towers around the United States, whether it's a civilian commercial airport or a military airport as well. Military bases and law enforcement even call Peter Davenport with his to give him references of people who are calling them for with sighting reports as well. And I was mentioning a little bit earlier that if you ever had the opportunity and the inclination to send Peter Davenport a little bit of a check or money order for his efforts that he's been doing for all these decades, it would be really a nice gesture periodically for Peter to receive some support from us out there in the hinterlands who we benefit from all of his hard work over the decades. You can go to his UFO Center website, ufocenter.com and .org, and find out a good way where you can actually mail him a check if you'd like, or donate on his website as well. So, gosh, that was fascinating to be able to have those right from the horse's mouth reports from Peter. And then, of course, we had a fascinating interview for 2.5 hours with a good friend and a very amazing researcher by the name of Tom Whitmore, who is literally for decades now been on the National Board of Directors for the Mutual UFO Network. I didn't realize that Tom was so prolific and involved in such a long period of time since 1995 on the MUFON Board of Directors, and now has retired from his working life and gone into research full time for all of the National Archives in Washington, D.C., where a lot of these documents have been kept over the years, maybe proof and or evidence of the fact that UFOs exist and have existed for a long time, well over 70 years, as far as the potential of the MJ-12 documents exist. And it was fascinating for me to hear Tom talk about his research into the details of either confirming or denying the truth and veracity or hoaxing of the MJ-12 documents. That is real fascinating to be able to talk with him and actually get his excitement feeling and actually touching the actual Cutler-Twining memo, for instance. The memo that basically kind of tips everyone off nowadays that the MJ-12 organization was potentially real. And, of course, there is some, some thought that all of these documents might be forged or hoaxed, but Tom is in there in the thick of things, trying to figure all of that out, and going to various archives and libraries within the system of our federal government, state government as well, and presidential libraries to actually come up with the truth of what's really going on in that regard. It was interesting to me that the fact that we got into some of the details as well of the Admiral Wilson smoking gun memo of the century, as Richard Dolan has termed it, the latest leak of potential reality of UFOs, and even the idea that the crash at Roswell, New Mexico might have actually happened as well. So Tom, of course, is researching that aspect of the whole idea of the MJ-12 documents, really basically confirming or talking about the idea that a crash of a saucer actually took place in July, potentially July 9th or 8th of 1947, outside of Roswell, New Mexico, on Max Brazel's ranch, or at least the ranch he was the foreman of at that time. And of course, the story goes he was riding out there on his horse, checking on the herds and the land that hot summer morning, when he comes across what he says is just a massive debris field of shiny, metallic, almost tinfoil-looking material spread over. I get the feeling when I read the terms that are described in the many books about his discovery that this was over literally hundreds of yards of area on the ranch, and he found supposedly I-beams, not made out of balsa wood, but some kind of material that was indestructible, with hieroglyphic kinds of writing on potentially the I-beams themselves, and the material that was very unique in the fact that when he put it in his hand and crumpled it up like a piece of tinfoil you would do, and then he let it go and it would just spring right back into its normal shape without any creases or anything like that. Kind of reminds me of modern day mylar, potentially, although there is something a little bit more mysterious about this material, and the fact that it almost seems to me in the descriptions that it flowed back. It didn't just spring back like a mylar piece of mylar plastic would do, or material would do. It would almost like flow back into position. So that was interesting. The fact that in 1947, that incident ticked off the entire MJ-12 idea that in the late 70s and then early 80s, these documents surfaced by William Moore and Jamie Chanderay, and then, of course, Stanton Friedman did all the follow-up research initially on that to basically call into question the veracity of those documents. But the MJ-12 idea, the idea that military and scientific experts were gathered together by President Truman at the time in 1947, if indeed there was a crash at Roswell, New Mexico that summer in 1947, that's basically when this group supposedly, in the documents, got together and was put together of various individuals that were insiders into the military community, intelligence community, as well as very high-level government scientists as well. And of course, then the strange case of having also on that list Dr. Menzel on the list, who is very famous and always had been a debunker of the whole idea of UFOs. And the fact that Dr. Donald Menzel was on that list with these high-level military and government scientists and military personnel was fascinating in itself. And then, of course, the idea that the Admiral Wilson memo that was leaked on Twitter just not that long ago now, about June 27th of 2019, talking about this very similar situation where there potentially was, noted in this memo, a crash or a retrieval of alien hardware, basically a long time ago, potentially in the same era of the 1947 Roswell, New Mexico crash. So it was fascinating to me to be able to talk with Tom Whitmore about his experience in finding and digging deep into the National Archives and what he's finding out to corroborate or not corroborate the details of the MJ-12 documents that he is so amazingly detailed in following up on. You heard him say that he has a bucket list and a checklist and a spreadsheet that he is trying to detail orient, get all the details done and tie up all the loose ends in his research in proving whether these documents are real or not. And of course, then he is also in contact with, which is fascinating to me, Dr. Bob Wood and his son Ryan Wood as well, who are fascinating researchers on their own and have been the pioneers in this area of following up on the forensic document analysis of the original group of MJ-12 documents that have been proffered to the public out there. And it's fascinating to me to find that Tom has been able to learn a lot from the mentorship of the Woods, Bob and Ryan, in this regard, in his own forensic document analysis as well. And of course, Tom mentioned that he has a very interesting friend who is detail-oriented in the Admiral Wilson documents as well, doing the due diligence research on the fact that those unacknowledged special access programs that are mentioned in this 15-page memo that existed back in 2002 and 1997, the time frame that the memo covers. And the fact that he is doing the research to find out that sounds like what he was telling us, that these unacknowledged special access programs that are named in the Admiral Wilson memo actually existed at that time, and some of them still exist. Some of the programs, the budgets, the personnel that are named in the Admiral Wilson document seem to be true, or at least have some kind of veracity in themselves. So that is interesting for me, because I've been involved in that Admiral Wilson memo ever since my client Grant Cameron brought it to my attention back in January 2nd of 2019. So slowly but surely, I think this is going to be a fascinating year. Obviously, it has been already with the developments socially that we're going through with the coronavirus and all of those social distancing issues, and the fact that we're not gathering together in groups currently. But we all need to stay safe, and we will get through this, I'm sure. So that is about all I have to say tonight. And I really appreciate everyone joining me on my show tonight. The Spaced Out Sunday show is something that I'm really enjoying. I want to thank Dave Scott and SOR for allowing me to sit in on Sunday nights here. And we will be with you next week. I'm going to do the extra music, and then we will cut out of here very shortly. So thank you for joining me. I want to remind you that everyone that Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL is the official music of Spaced Out Radio.
People came from miles around to throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end. Then one day, that fate day, they forced me off his land. They paid me off and sent me off down under with a plan. They hit Mel's hole and covered it up so ne'er it could be found, so no one would ever know. Once you get down in Mel's ground, yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi-oh. There's no bottom to chance to find yourself in eastern Washington and hear the legend of Mel's Hole. Be wary, my dear one. Don't ride alone at night on that nasty train. Listen carefully. Only be
ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you that Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. You can find out more information on his music at bumblefoot.com. So special thanks to everyone listening in at home and in your car and at work and through the chat rooms. Thank you for joining me tonight. Wherever you are around the world, remember this show is currently copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us tonight, folks. Be careful out there, and we own the night, of course. And good night, everyone. We will talk to you next Sunday.